I did tell you we'll be back, right? We're back with the Noah, Dan Mora, Once and Future comic. If you're confused about anything I say, go check out my previous video on this beautiful story. Once and Future is a story about stories, a world where stories once uttered become real. And our main character's name is Duncan, also called Percival, because they wanted him to be a hero. And like I said, once uttered becomes real. And we continue where we left off in the last video. King Arthur is extremely disappointed. Not only did he find out his shorty actually had an affair with Lancelot to give birth to Galahad, this prick, he also lost the Holy Grail because of this prick. So he decided to bless this Galahad with the opportunity to sit in the Siege Perilous. For those of you who do not know, the Siege Perilous is a throne-like seat where only a true pure of heart knight could sit down to find the Holy Grail. And like I said, this prick was not pure of heart at all. He walked up to it so confident, claiming he was the best, and he sat down, forgetting that pride is also a sin. He was transformed into something unrecognizable. But more on that later. Back with Duncan though. Duncan had just killed a pixie. I mean, it's so funny because he looked so traumatized. The pixie was killed with the help of his grandmother who recommended iron. If you watched my last video, you know him and his grandmother are not cool. So the second Rose called, he cut the phone with his grandmom and picked the phone with her because she had another mission for him. Granny was kind of hurt, but she was going to get her lick back. Right now, Duncan had heard from Rose, and she told him that something magical was about to happen, and he needs to move fast. So he did, moving to his new adventure. But Granny called Rose to find out where he was going. He needed backup, and she was uncomfortable that he was in the field alone. He was sent to this museum by Rose herself, gifted a freaking gem that would direct him to anything magical, and it did its job, directing him up the stairs into some passageways directly at the helmet. I'm sure you're asking yourself which helmet. Well, an Anglo-Saxon helmet. It pointed directly at it. But the thing is, Duncan was not alone because the Demon King has sent someone. The Demon King sent Galahad, new and improved Corpse Knight. Mind you, for those of you that don't know, this is also his brother. A brother he's never known, never loved, never grew up with. Galahad was different. He was disgusting. Literally maggots and pus were pouring out of his body. But when Duncan asked him, "How are you like this? Why are you?" Galahad completed it, "I am perfect," launching an attack on his brother. Thankfully, Duncan was quick on his feet, so he stepped out of the way, pulling out his Glock and unleashing some shots. Galahad was fast though because he was literally riding on a demon horse. While they both did battle, someone was in the museum as well, stealing a manuscript. That will come into play later, but right now, Galahad was about to kill his brother. But thankfully, before he could, grabbing a hold of his brother's head about to smash it in, Granny came through. I told you she was going to get her lick back. She told Duncan to get out of the way. Because for those of you who don't know, Granny is with the smoke. She was honestly one of the best hunters in history, doing most of her hunting with traps. She was really good at laying traps, and today was no different. She laid out a line that was razor sharp and taunted Galahad to attacking, and when he did, he was split in half, him and his horse. In one fell swoop, he lost his beast and his legs. He was calling Granny a monster, but Granny just walked up to him and said, "Hi, I'm your grandmother. Goodbye." Before she could blast him in the head, he was gone, teleported with magic. Duncan was glad to see his grandmother was still alive, but there was no time to rest because Rose called him to tell him there was another break-in and a manuscript was stolen. A manuscript of Beowulf himself. This is when we see who actually stole the manuscript. It was Mary, Granny's daughter, the mother of Galahad. Yes, the same Galahad that was just split in half. She was chanting a spell on a big hill, calling to someone that was going to come here and help her out with her deceitful plan. Someone tearing the ground like he was coming straight from hell. She was calling Beowulf himself. Granny and Duncan were able to track down Mary, but they didn't know it was her. looking for what she let loose on this planet. Duncan thought to himself, maybe it was Beowulf, but Granny said no. Poems cannot come to life. She was so wrong. Back in King Arthur's demon castle, though, the hand was bleeding to death, and he was afraid to die, but King Arthur promised him, you sat on the siege perilous. You're not going to die. But someone interrupted this moment. Someone strong enough to walk through the king's demon knights with no harm coming to him, shouting and demanding, who is the king of this castle? Beowulf is here. And King Arthur wanted the smoke. Beowulf wanted the smoke. Both of them wanted to see who was stronger. So both of them attacked with all of their strength. One demon, one from hell. But at the core of the story, King Arthur was a knight. Beowulf was a savage, headbutting King Arthur back. He said, come on, king, bring it on. And King Arthur shouted, you will die for that. About to attack when they were both stopped by a man of magic. Merlin came bowling through, telling Beowulf that he is not the enemy. The enemy is out there. The enemy did that to Galahad. As soon as he looked at Galahad, he was pissed. Who did this to you? I shall kill that person with my bare hands. King Arthur was in silence, watching all of this play out. He just let it play because he didn't want to face this lunatic. Not right now, at least. But he looked at Merlin. Who are you? And why are you helping me? Merlin introduced himself, but King Arthur said, I do not know your name. This is because throughout history, a bunch of stories have been told with Arthur. And in this particular one, Merlin was not mentioned. So when he came back, he did not remember who Merlin was. But Merlin was still loyal. Merlin was still King Arthur's wizard to command. Back in the field, though, Granny and Duncan decided to pack up, but they were being watched by Mary herself, the sickle witch who sacrificed both sons for her agenda. Pulling out a bunch of twigs, she tossed them to the wind, and a message was laid on the floor, clearly from Merlin, saying, good, await my command. But she wanted to know about her son. How was Galahad? And he replied, he is well. She was at peace, but Granny and Duncan were about to be in war because they called Rose, hoping for another mission. But she just made it clear that something was coming towards them, something close. She asked for a moment to check again, and when she checked, it was closer than ever. It was right on top of them. And we see someone on fire jumping directly at the car. That someone was Beowulf himself, and he wanted violence. Punching his way through the car, Granny was with the smoke because she shot back, but she missed every single shot. Duncan asked his grandmother, what do we do? But she just told him to drive. And Beowulf looked in a hole and was like, nah, you ain't going nowhere, tearing off the roof and saying, Beowulf has you now. Granny and Duncan have the fight of their lives the next video. Stay tuned.